Every day at Bakersfield College, our students are moving toward their goals. Why aren't you with them? Is it cost? Family obligation? Maybe you don't feel prepared for college life. The good news is we're prepared to help you. You have yet to realize how much help and support is waiting for you at Bakersfield College. Learn more now on EquityTV. Good morning, I'm Francis Mayer, and this is EquityTV. It's Bakersfield College's feel-good news show, if you will. We hear plenty of stories in the news about people who can't or won't follow the rules of society to get a more comfortable life and find success. But here on EquityTV, we do just the opposite. We tell you good stories of people who are jumping through the hoops required to gain experience, education, and ultimately status in society where they can be more comfortable and have the things they want and do the things they want. And one such person came through Bakersfield College and has gone on to start a company that is rather successful here in Kern County and elsewhere. His name is Morgan Clayton. Good morning, Mr. Clayton. How are you, sir?
Francis, fine. Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Good.
Did the boss clear you? Oh, wait a second. You are the boss.
I'm the bell ringer.
That's right. Tell us who you are and what you do, sir.
Morgan Clayton, born and raised in Bakersfield, California. Essentially went through all schools, local Bakersfield City School District, Bakersfield High School, Bakersfield College, a couple of years there. Basically from there, started a family and then created TelTec Security Systems 33 years ago.
Wow. And you're still going strong.
Still going strong.
But there have been some changes of venue. And originally, when TelTec started, you were a student at Bakersfield College, weren't you?
Yeah, basically kind of in the short, we never envision when we have storms come in our lives. So essentially, I'm going to school, wanting to become an architect. I think Dr. Funk and Kuhn right there at the time, and things were moving along. Well, mom and dad passed away. Basically, got married. So the bottom line of that is when you have a family and you lose your parents, which for most of us who were students then, and probably even still now, are backing, when you lose that, you have to regroup. So for me, it was finding that which I loved, what I do. Security became the second piece of that because I couldn't go into Cal Poly, and here we are.
Well, and to expand on that a little bit, because you've shared some of the story with me, you did go to Cal Poly, and folks generally consider that their path to success is going to involve 2 years at BC, or 3 maybe, it depends. And unless you're going to get into the applied technology program and get your baccalaureate, you're going to leave BC. You're going to move on and go to Cal Poly, Caltech, Berkeley, San Francisco State, wherever. You're going to go to a 4-year school and get your degree and then start your life. But you went to Cal Poly and you found something out.
Yeah, basically wasn't a student at Cal Poly. Essentially, there's that whole day where you go and kind of engage people like, where do you want to go?
Right.
So you've got your transcripts, you got your point card, your scorecard.
Sure.
And when you go, there's this magic person, and it happens at every university, that says, we think we would love to have you here, but there's the technical part, and what's that? Well, it's going to cost you $20,000 or so, and when you hear that word, I didn't know what $2,000 was, let alone $20,000. And so when you start thinking about the different requirements for housing, the special projects, it's really interesting that iris just started shrinking. And so, you smile, you put on a good face, but when you walk out the door, you say, wow.
There's no way.
There's no way, because you got two directions. You can either go student loans, which I did not go that direction.
Well, why would you? Oh, well, you would have had to go student loans because your parents had passed away.
They're gone.
So
there was no tax base. There was no way. And even if I would have gone through some special EOP or minority program, the bottom line, my parents said, look, when you reach in your pocket and you pull out what you got, that's what you got. And you got to figure out if you're going to borrow or if you're going to do it by the School of Hard Knocks. And I just said, you know what, I'm not borrowing money that I can't pay back, because I didn't know how I was going to pay it back. So I had to basically do it the other way, which is the School of Hard Knocks, which didn't turn out too bad.
No, it didn't. But also, to be completely fair, you didn't go through the motions at BC. You actually did the motions. You took, didn't you? There was a small business program at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Bakersfield College at the time offered small business programs, which I went through that. Loved it. Basically, it taught the dynamics of the structure of small business. It talked about bookkeeping, creating your plan. I put all that together, and that was all. It was all good, great teachers, great experiences. but the execution part became the real issue. And that's where mentorship becomes so important, that when you start to create this idea of who you want to be, you've got to start to look out at the horizon and saying, well, who really does this? You know, if you're going to be a good musician, you like country western, well, unfortunately, Buck's not with us anymore, but Buck Owens would have been a person, hey, I could talk to Buck, you know.
Yes.
I knew Buck, so I mean, I could say that.
Sure.
And the family they're into music. Or if you decide you wanted to be a good whatever.
An athlete, you could go talk to Joey Porter, David Carr.
Any of those guys, well, who's doing it? And they would give you, you may want to do that, but here's the behind the scenes, you know. You
Right.
want to play football, but you say, oh, you don't like to get hit? Ain't going to work.
No, yeah, you don't like to exercise 5.5, 6 hours a day?
Totally.
Probably not for you.
Totally. So in business, it's the same core principle that for every dollar you make, you got to pay your bills, but you got to have cash left over to grow. And that's called profit or net profit in our world. And if you don't have that, no margin, no mission. It doesn't happen.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it. But you, when you were at BC, I have to think that, and you keep talking about being the person you want to be, figuring out who you want to be. You're not necessarily talking about finding yourself, but you are in a more practical sense. You wanted to find out what your strengths were, and I think some of that did happen at Bakersfield College, but then you were able to know which help to ask for based on your weaknesses?
Well, no,
or which you weren't interested in?
A little bit of both, because, you know, when you walk onto the campus from Bakersfield High School to BC, any campus is discovery.
Sure.
I mean, you are there. The first thing you're doing is hooking up with the people you know, like your friends.
Right.
And they're introduce you to the cafeteria, which is where you should not be, but you are a lot of the times. But what happens is you start connecting. And let me give you an example. I knew I wanted to be in something where when I looked at the world out there, that it was going to be inflation free. I didn't want something where every time the wind blew that there was a problem. So Bakersfield was good for me because you had ag and oil. Those are two constants. Well, right now they're wiggling a little bit, but they're constants.
But people are always going to need energy and food.
Yeah,
it's not going to go out of style.
It's not going to go. You know, whether you buy it at the dollar store or organic, you got to have it, right?
Exactly.
So for me, it was really honing in on the key skill sets that work. For example, I might have been a good guy on business paper, but Don Rodewald, I think, was the communications guy at the time. Mm-hmm. I remember I took his communications class. Why? Because you can't sell if you can't talk.
That's true.
And even when you talk, when you look at all the diversity that's out there, you have to be able to articulate where people understand what it is you want, and that's the key.
And expand on that, because we actually have a young man. His name is Miles, and he has helped me as a production assistant on the show quite a bit. He's a young African-American male, and sometimes he is concerned that he's not urban enough, and he says, do you think I ought to talk whiter? And I say, Miles, it's not about talking white. It's about speaking in a way that everyone can understand what you're trying to get across, right?
Yeah, it's all about this. When I'm through with the conversation, do you understand what I want? Yeah, you know, it doesn't take Espanol, it doesn't take English, it doesn't take German.
Right.
It's asking a clear, definitive question, and that is, what do you want? When do you want it? And how do we create this exchange?
Absolutely.
But if someone says to you, and this is what I learned, and I also teach my children, if someone says, I don't understand. Here's a perfect example. We go to China. My family and I are on the train. Fast train, right?
Is it one of the bullet trains?
One of the bullet trains.
Do you feel like you're moving fast?
You are moving fast. But what happens is I have to get ready to go to the bathroom. I got to go to the bathroom. Uh-huh. But as we go further into China, there is no English.
Oh,
I mean, and you got this book, and you're looking for bathroom.
Oh, gosh.
And this is really interesting. I'm twitching, and my wife's looking at me saying, what's wrong with you? I said, I got to go. And so this little lady comes up to me, Oriental lady, beautiful lady. She grabs me and she goes, come here. And she walks me over to where I had to go.
Oh, empathy.
Empathy. Oh, she could have asked me for the world and I'd have gave it to her.
You would have, yes.
Because there's this innate thing, obviously women nurturing.
Sure.
They understand. Men, we're kind of out there sometimes.
On our own mission.
But the whole point is communication, it's not a race thing.
No.
It's not. It's a matter of saying, what is it you need? Because whether you're doing business in the U.S., China, Mexico, wherever, you've got to be able to be in a place of comfort in the culture that you're operating. Got to be. And that's down the neighborhood.
Right.
There it is.
No, that's an excellent point. So you, to our Bakersfield College students out there who feel like they are eager to take care of their family, because sometimes I hear students say, I don't have time to go to school. I got to get to work to help take care of my family. The other day I called TelTec, and I said, could I speak to Mr. Clayton? And they said, which one? So you have been able to take care of your family while also getting your education, right?
Yeah, I'm always in continuous learning, and let me tell you why. When I started TelTec 33 years ago, the way you put in security 33 years ago, which was a screwdriver, dry cell batteries, and gel cell batteries, and cabling, today it's programming, all programming. So the transference of that is my young adult kids are involved with psychology because we need HR people. My oldest son is in technology. He has a network company. I have another kid that's involved. My son is involved in production of music. He does a lot of social media. All of that brings us back into TelTec, where how do we use these tools we have to expand the communication to our customers that say, we hear you. And the thing I tell young people is this. Imagine that you're my dad and I'm talking to you and I say, I'm your dad and we made stagecoaches. And you go, Dad, I want to be the best stagecoach maker in the world. But this guy just walks in and says, hey, we're investing in trains, dude. We're moving into trains. But you say, no, I need to become a stagecoach guy.
Because that's what my daddy did.
My daddy did. And I don't care what you say. That's what I'm going to do. Well, dude, in about 5 years, we're in trains, so we'll see you in the museum.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens with people. If you're in a family business or at BC and you're not continuously transitioning and learning and listening to what people want, then you will do kind of what what Steve Jobs did with Apple, which I find amazing. He took dreams and gave them to people. Say, this is what you ought to be doing.
Yeah.
And now we got the Apple. I mean, you got all these Apple products, right? All these apps.
People didn't know they needed that phone until he made it and told them they needed it.
But now if you take that out of my hand, I'll slap you with the yellow pages because it has no use for me anymore.
Right.
I mean, so it's that. I mean, so it's that whole transference of generations. And so that's why I have my family connected to it. I love it. And we're doing what we love, but yet they have to see themselves in the vision.
No, they do. And speaking of having vision, you get a lot of your vision from listening to your customers. And it doesn't seem that you're too married to your own genius or your own ideas. Talk about how important that is to listen and give people what they want.
When you're in business, here's the first thing. No one gets the credit but the customer. Because here's the bottom line. If you're in business, and I'll say this for profit as well as nonprofit, it doesn't matter. You have a customer, you have a client, you have someone you're serving. If you serving all day long, serving all day long. I tell someone, you serve someone a bad meal, and you give them a bad taste. Don't worry, it'll be the last time you'll see them.
Yeah.
And the key becomes the bell rings for all of us at the end of the month. We all have commitments to make. Whether you have a lot of money or no money, everyone has commitments. So here it is. Your customer is the key to your success. The question becomes, what kind of customer do you want? Mm-hmm. When you look at those who are serving in the dollar store component, great customers, right?
Sure.
But there's a price point and a value that they have. But I can guarantee you, when you walk in that dollar store, you're not walking in a Nordstrom's.
No.
Is what you see is what you get.
Right.
You walk in a Nordstrom's, you're getting this whole customer service experience. You get a shirt you don't want, you wore it once, they'll swap it for you. Go to the dollar store and try that.
Yeah, forget it.
But at the end of the day, they're both customers that will exchange the value of $1. So you have to be very synchronized on who your customer is and not on you.
Right. And that they say that's a problem with the current generation is it's the buy me or the me first generation. But you have gotten what you have. And how many employees do you have right now?
75.
But you didn't start with 75.
No. And I think the generation today being mobile, if you will, where, in fact, I was doing this interview and this young person said, I just want to be able to manage my life from my iPhone, my iPad. I said, what are you going to do when the battery goes dead? Because it will happen.
Yes, yeah.
Which means you will not be able to think or articulate any direction because you'll be looking for your GPS, but it's not there. It's like walking into a fast food healthy place and someone says, oh, my battery's dead. I have $5, but I can't remember. How much change am I giving you? Because I don't have my calculator. I mean, really, it really boils down to thinking, and I think that's what the educational system is trying to get back to, these core principles. Put the text down. It's a great tool.
Sure.
It's not a life, it's a tool.
Right.
And once you take that and you move into this young environment, which I get, and this is what I tell them, your skill sets define who you are, whether you're in the room or out of the room, but you must be able to do both. Because there's a time where you have the ability to grow. And a perfect example, oil companies. Look at all of the growth we experienced, but somehow brakes are on, a lot of issues going on with fracking and water, right? They're having to restructure themselves to continue to drive what their customers, which are their investors, are saying. And see, people look at the price of oil and gas, they go, I get it, but they still have to get a return on investment. Right. Because you and my mom and dad are depending on those pension checks, right?
No,
for those that are alive.
But that's absolutely correct. Is people who think that they don't have a concern in oil. I'm gonna rely on alternative transportation. Petroleum is still a huge driver of the economy, and everybody who collects a pension, everybody who has their retirement hopefully tied up outside of Social Security, is depending on those core industries to be successful.
Yeah, and and the flip over I tell people sometimes is, without putting a name on it. Mm-hmm. Go online and then look at their core values and see where they put their resources back into air, water, students. Now, are there issues? That's life, right?
Sure.
But it's not you against me. It's really a collaboration of how do we move the needle forward, because we're America.
Yeah,
that's why I look at it.
Yeah, no, we are the leaders, and Mr. Clayton, you're a wonderful leader in the community. I think any student would be well served to take a page out of your playbook, listen to customers, always be improving, always be educating yourself, and identify your strengths so that you can bring people on board who have what you don't have.
Yeah, the one thing I try to tell young people, I'll try to plug this in, is this. I can get into a discussion with you about politics. I can talk to you about race. I can talk to you about, oh my gosh, the crime that's going on. Dude, let's move that aside for a second, or ladies for a second, and now let's talk about skill, no skill. Because that's really what the issue is here's what mom and daddy told you. If they have it, they're going to say one day, son or daughter, I love you. You're the most precious thing in my life. But what are you going to do to take care of yourself? Because, we've been doing this ride for about 20 years, and we really want to get in the back seat and ride along. So what is that skill or skill set you have? And the thing I tell people, there are people who are going to be the greatest plumbers in the world. I love them, because when my toilet stops up, I want them back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. When my paint cracks and I need a painter, I need you.
Yes.
Because I can't paint. Right. Or when my car needs to be fixed. So trades are never going to go anywhere. They may be programmable trades,
sure,
but they're still going to be there. But here's the one thing that's interesting. I'll tell people, I haven't seen them create a robot yet that can change a baby diaper. Right?
Wow.
So in the very nature of what we do, when we get air and we get life and creativity, we have to remember that nurturing, being a mother, that's the hardest occupation to change. Because she's always going to say, okay, now that I've diapered you, grown you up, and given you milk, given you food, how are you going to take care of yourself? A lot of young people today can't answer that question because they can't get out of the text, get off the dashboard to say, what am I really, really good at with my skills versus no skills? And that's what I would tell college kids today. If I walked in, close the laptop, turn off the text, let's talk. Let's just talk. Yeah. And here's what it is. I will put $100 on the table. Who in here has interviewed or talked to a senior citizen yesterday? Pause. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
The people who created what we're doing, who are sitting in these rest homes with all kinds of knowledge and creativity, we have the ability to go sit and talk because, they got nothing but time.
That's true.
And they got a lot of good information, and I do it all the time. And when you pull upside, they hold you, say, no, don't go. Oh. So why not create this whole idea of giving a little time back to the people who no longer are working, but rob them of everything they have in their minds to make us a better who we are?
Yeah, no, that is absolutely correct. And if you have time to do that, I fully encourage it. But more so, if you have time to sit down and talk to Morgan Clayton of TelTec, I encourage you to do that. This has been some of the most informative minutes that I've passed in a very long time, and we thank him for coming from the bottom of our hearts. Now, coming up next, we have Professor David Moten of the Bakersfield College English Department. He's written a book called Chama, New Mexico. He's going to talk about that, and he's also going to tell us how he became an educator and how he does what he loves for a living. That's coming up next on Equity TV.